Mason doesn't want to hear about Uncle Butts.
Uncle Butts? Shout out to Uncle Butts.
Yeah.
Uncle Butts, that's a good name.
And it's Mason Clark, right? I'm not
Mason
saying.
Clark,
Okay,
yep.
just making sure.
Mason 6'2" Clark.
Yep. You make a thing, you think you might get low-key canceled over it, turns out to be your whole personality for a couple of years. It's just how it works.
Well, you know what? I went to Google you the other day when I was like doing some stuff for this, and it was like a Weeb account.
Because Musk banned me. He banned my Twitter account.
So you made a second Weeb account.
I had to make, that was my main account for like a year and a half.
I remember that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I like had to like, you know, it was also the time when Magic's like popping off the hardest for
Because
me.
you changed your name to Elon.
Yeah, I changed my name Musk, and I was like, I'm gonna unban Splinter Twin when he bought Twitter, like everyone was doing.
Yeah.
You know, like Luna, actually, the Hearthstone pro who plays a bunch of Magic now. That's how I met her, because she saw my joke, made the same one for her with Hearthstone, excuse me, and then she got banned, and she had like 30,000 followers or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And she was just like I don't know, like a friend said you got banned too. I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to people. I got unbanned before her. And then, like, had to help her through the process. But I kept at it for, like, a year and a half trying to get my account back, and got it back around the time that, like, second account about got to where I was. But it was like, you know, I was popping off, everything's going really well, and a bunch of people think they're following me, and they're not, or whatever. You know, people are like, oh, I thought I was following you. And I was like, no, I made a stupid joke and got banned.
We're here with resident Weeb Mason Clark, and this is how it's starting.
Yeah.
Oh my god, no, we can do a nice intro if you want, but that's really funny, and I kind of want to leave it in there.
Yeah,
That's
leave
the
it
best
in.
story.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, Mason Clark's here, everybody. Surprise, we have a guest today.
Guest.
We've had, a guest before. It was the Scry Boys. You know me, love them. Steve's in the corner yelling Scry Man probably, but it's all good. So Mason's here. We had the pleasure of having Mason and Niall join us this weekend to play some games of Commander and do some podcasts with us. We're going to talk a little bit about Mason, let you introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into the whole episode. So, Mason, you are a competitive Magic player and coach. You're the host of Constructed Criticism and writer for TCG Player. So we'll be discussing your history as a competitive player in Magic the Gathering, what it's like to work on sets for Magic, and we'll discuss which constructed formats are best for Commander players who are wanting to jump in. But first, a word from our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by TCG Player.
That's right. TCG Player is your one-stop shop for all things TCG, whether it be singles, whether it be booster packs, or you want to get some cool Commander decks. They have it all. Everything from the first set of the year, Murders at Karlov Manor, now to MH3, Modern Horizons 3.
I was thinking is MKM the first set of the year, but no, Ravnica Remastered. We've had so many
You're right,
sets.
Ravnica Remastered.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one. Oh my goodness.
We can shop for everything. You can also pre-order for new sets. So if you're wanting to pick up Bloomburrow, Duskborn, or anything else coming out this year, you can go over to TCG Player to shop for them. There's a lot of really hot new singles. We're going to be talking about those today. There's also precons for the set and like fancy versions of the precons.
Yeah, there's a collector precons.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So those are all available. You can get them as bundles or individual ones on there. And again, lots of options for the set. We have all new collector's boosters, which are looking really spicy. So if you want to check out TCG Player, you can do so with the link in our description down below.
Thank you, TCG Player, for sponsoring this podcast.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield.
Wahoo!
We got these new Dragon Shields in. We get some new Dragon Shields whenever they produce things, which is cool because we always need sleeves for our decks. Many sleeves.
What do you got over there?
I have a Joker and Batman. They kiss.
They finally made up. I have the blue silver matte dual sleeves. These are really pretty. It's a cool blue.
Mm-hmm.
Great for the summertime. Great for your new Merfolk decks.
And it's part of their anniversary collection. So we have that really pretty glittery thing that we never posted about because our package got here late from them. But that's part of their anniversary set. So Dragon Shield's been around for 25 years. We love them. We're so thankful for them for sponsoring our channel. We use them for all of our decks. So if you want to pick up some Dragon Shields, you can use the link in our description down below. And there's a coupon code so you can save some money. Go check that out. So how'd you get started playing Magic?
Yeah, so I got started playing Magic back in Gatecrash. At the time, my girlfriend worked at a card store, and I had played other card games, and she wanted to play the pre-release. And her dad was actually an old-time like Versus pro for people who've played card games for a long time. And he and her taught me the game. I played the pre-release. I had a lot of fun. And I kind of played it casually for a while. And I played another game pretty competitively for a bit, and eventually transitioned into Magic full-time around Hour of Devastation is when I first started. It's like, I'm going to try and get good at this. I'm going to try and get to the Pro Tour. But between, like, Gatecrash and Hour of Devastation, I played casually and, like, kind of know what happened, but wasn't following it super closely. And that's sort of, like, my Magic journey.
Okay. Tori and I started playing, like, right before call time. 2022? What 2021? We started in 2022, so we started Scribe in 2022, so we started playing in 2021. Math. What is Gate Crash? What year? I don't know this.
2012 or 2013.
Oh wow, okay.
It's around then, and then Our Devastation would be 2017-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you've been playing for a while. That's awesome. I wish I played Magic that long, mostly because I wish I had a more extensive collection of cards, which I'm assuming maybe you do.
I luckily was smart enough. I sold some cards originally because, at the time, right, like I was playing another card game, so I would like win a little bit with Magic. I would have my deck that I would play at like Tuesday, $10 standard, win some store credit, and I would buy packs of their game. And I sold some stuff there. Like I sold some Caverns, I sold a couple Shocks, so I kept the ones I really liked. And then before I even made the switch full time, I was like, I'm gonna stop selling these cards unless like I have to, like an emergency comes up. And so my collection's gotten pretty size, like. It's a pretty big size now, and I can basically play anything I want in the main formats. I'm not like
so nice.
legacy pilled, but yeah, I've got a pretty nice collection, all things considered.
I know one thing I always say to Tori and Steve when they talk about modern stuff, like when they're like, "Oh, I'm playing this deck, and then next week this thing's banned," that would stress me out. But I feel like if you have a nice extensive collection as like kind of a backup for things like that, like obviously you have to buy new cards when they come out and things like that, but having a nice collection for the flexibility of playing what you want is probably really nice too.
Yeah, it's super nice. I actually have a deal with my local store where like I buy a playset of commons and uncommons from them now every time, and that really helps too because those are always like weirdly the hardest things to get because when like they surge up, everyone buys them and like no one goes to a store and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna sell you these uncommons. Here you go."
Yeah,
so can't ever get them.
You can go through my boxes upstairs. There's like a lot of that's not sorted.
It's terrifying.
Yeah,
like you think you're like. Can't be that unsorted. It's unsorted.
It's so bad.
There's just random shit.
But there's value.
There's value.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the grinder life, the grinder journey? We know that you happened to win a DreamHack RC. You were the poster man on there with Saul.
So for worth noting, it technically isn't an RC. Like, it was like the first, like really RCQ in a lot of ways, but it was like a large sum, and it was like DreamHack's first big event. And so I just want to say that just because I feel like some people think, like, I try never to do that, and DreamHack wants to promote me on the face with, like, the other RC winners. Like, those people won, like, the super crazy tournament. My tournament was, like, 400 or 500 people.
That's still super crazy.
It was still impressive. Like, I'm very proud of that accomplishment. But it was not, like, the same.
Well, you're also, you're grinding. You're in the Apex scene. You go to SCGs. Can you talk about, like, your journey as the MTG grinder?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting where I first started playing Magic competitively around Hour, and it's so funny. At the time, I was like, I'm not going to care about SCGs. I just want to get to the Pro Tour. I'm going to go play Grand Prix. Why would I play SCGs? Which, if you're like a new person to Magic, is like NRG but bigger. Which I do commentary for, which is one of my favorite things in Magic. But so I started like grinding Grand Prix, and I wasn't like very good, but I would like day 2 enough-ish and like do fine, and really was like kind of probably good for my development, but like bad for my wallet. And at some point, I met someone from Wizards of the Coast, kind of like talked to them a little bit, took the play design test, and they told me like, hey, we think like you had good answers, but you don't have any results. You kind of need to prove yourself a little bit if you're going to do play design. And I was like, okay. And they were like, yeah, just like do well in some tournaments. So that's when I started grinding.
They said get good. They literally said get good to you.
They literally said, if you think you're good, prove it.
Yeah, they were like, your degree's here. What's the GPA?
Yeah.
Give us the transcripts. You know? Did you print this out?
It's actually a lot. Like, I went to trade school. I have a lot of experience on the job. So I went and I started grinding SCGs. And ironically, the first one after that, I ended up top 4ing with a team event. And then I started to grind the series with like the intent of, I was like, all right, I'm halfway through the first year. I'm going to get some buys because they used to give buys for doing one on the leaderboard. And then I'm going to make a real run in 2020. That's the game plan.
Yeah.
So I like half a year on the grind. I like catch up. I end up at like 35th. 32 gets the second buy. Whatever, it's fine. Only had half a year. I start grinding. And then like at the end of like when it all stops because of COVID, I'm like 17th on the leaderboard.
Yeah.
And there's like top 16s also like immortalized on the website. So I'm one off being immortal. I just like needed to win one more match.
Yeah.
But so that was the kind of the plan was like, I'm going to grind these SGs. I'm going to do this. COVID happens. I play some Magic online a little bit, but I never really played a ton of challenges. I play some of the SCGs on Magic Online. That goes fine. And then, the pandemic starts to like open up a little bit. We get the vaccine. I win the DreamHack, and then things just kind of kept going from there. At the time, like I had worked on, I never really stopped practicing Magic. Like, my whole goal with Magic has always been to kind of be the best Mason I can be. And I only really care about being better than Mason before. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I've been really good at another card game. I just want to see how good could I get at Magic.
I think there's two things that you said that are very, like, in line with what I've heard from competitive play, which is a lot of people were like, 2020 is my year. And a lot of people had big plans for it or did very well and were excited to do that. And then everything just shut down. They lost that. I think the only thing that like was successful really during that time was like Commander and like CDH, I guess. Like people were just, because you're at home and you're doing that. The other thing is like, I like that you said you're just trying to be better than Mason before, because I think that with competitive play a lot, there can be this like not animosity, but like this your worth is only equal to your achievements, right? And I think sometimes people can be not so great to other people because of that. So I think the attitude of being like, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to do the best, like that could be your attitude, but instead you're just being like, no, I'm going to be better than I was before. I'm going to help myself like achieve the goals that I want to do and accomplish the things I want to do. I think that's really nice.
Yeah, I think like Magic is a game that produces a ton of losers, right? Like, and what I mean by that is you go to a tournament, only one person wins.
Look at me.
Yeah, well, I hate to bring it up. This is the first time I made eye contact with you all episode, but no, I'm just kidding. But
wow,
no,
I
but,
owe
you know,
you one pioneer event.
Was it one? You know what? We'll talk about it off the air. No, but so I think it's important though to just like really focus on yourself, right? Because like comparing yourself to others doesn't really get you anywhere. It doesn't prove anything, right? Like, if let's say I do better than Nathan Stoyer at a tournament, as just a random example, right? Does that prove anything?
Coming for you, Nathan.
Yeah, right.
Watch out, daggers.
Yeah, like how many like do I have to do to prove that? Like to me, it never really made sense, right? But what I think does make sense is like, what is your process? Why did you do these things? Why did you make these plays? That's the things that really stood out to me. Yeah. And so to me, it was always like, well, the only way I can be good is like if I do these things correctly, and there's no way to compare myself to anyone else, so I should only compare myself to me. Yeah. And also it's the only thing that makes sense, right? Like it doesn't matter if like, you know, you make the Pro Tour and I don't. That's great for you.
I'm gonna make the Pro Tour, everyone. Here's your post, yeah.
Yeah, like your success doesn't detract from my
100%.
successes. And so like I think so often people get trapped in like the idea of winning and stuff like that, and like winning tournaments is cool. Like, you know, I recently won an SCG and that was like cool. Like I liked doing that, but you know, it was like I knew that like when I was in like top 8, I was like, I feel good about this. And going into the weekend, like I felt like, yeah, I'm playing well. That's all that really matters. Yeah. And I was actually talking to my girlfriend where I was like, yeah, Friday I'm going to play the deck that I like a bit more. I don't think it's quite as good as these other decks, but I like it. Friday's half off. Let's play. And that's the one I ended up winning.
Oh, wow.
You know, yeah. And so it was just like,
if you feel good with the deck, then maybe that helps with your performance because you're you know, feeling excited about it.
Yeah, people always worry about having like the absolute best deck all the time. And I always tell people like, if you're a reasonable deck gamer and you just have a deck where it's like, what I always said is, you know, if you walk up to like whoever the GOAT is at the time, so let's say
like Steve with ad nauseum.
Yeah, like Steve with ad nauseum. Yeah. Steve never got made fun of for playing it. But you know, if I walk up to like Paulo Vitor Damarosa and he's like, Mason, what are you playing this weekend? I'm like, oh, I'm playing humans. He's like, that makes sense. And even if it's like maybe not the best choice, it at least passed that bar. And that was the thing I always tell people is like, pick a deck that's reasonable that you like or whatever, and then play it well. Because like maybe you have a deck that's 2% better. Okay, sure, whatever. But like if you're not playing well, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, right? Like type play matters more than anything else.
So you're saying that what's like your process of like either like learning a new deck, studying a new deck, or just like overall practicing for events like this? I know people do like test houses. I know people play a lot online. What is your kind of like regimen? What do you do?
Yeah, so like when it comes to practice, I am definitely we mentioned at the beginning I'm a full-time coach, and this is a lot of do as I say, not as I do, because definitely I don't play enough Magic as I should. I do a lot of thinking about things, and I spend a lot of time, and I've played an unhealthy amount of Magic earlier in my life. When I first started grinding, I would like get on around 8 o'clock with one of my best friends who had already played a bunch, and he was helping me, and we would play from like 8 to midnight every day, and we'd go play a tournament, and we took Sundays off. Yeah. So I did an unhealthy amount of grinding and learning kind of like core, like how this type of deck functions. And nowadays I care much more about how does my deck interact with your deck, right? So I think
it's really interesting. Yeah. Sorry, I'm not cutting you off. That it's Ian's the same way. Like I'll be like, okay, you have a tournament coming up. He's like, I'm gonna play this thing tomorrow, and like I feel confident on the lines and these things, and I'm gonna play that, and then he wins. I could not do that, and I admire that so much. And the like, you know the thing in SpongeBob where they go through all the files and they're like throwing shit out? Like I feel like everybody in Magic has this vast knowledge for the cards because you've been playing for so long too. Like I've just started now feeling like I'm starting to get there with just understanding cards and being like better at perceiving them. But when I look at people like you play stuff and talk about stuff, I'm like, holy shit, how does your brain work? Because that's crazy. That's like a lot of things to retain.
It's a lot of comparing things. Like, if
Yeah.
you hear me talk about Magic, you'll often hear me do two things. One, I'll compare two cards to each other. So I'll be like, oh, that's like a spell pierce or whatever, right? The other thing I'll do is I'll compare it to weird things in real life. Like, often, like, recently on my podcast, Constructive Criticism, all about getting better at Magic, I talked about how, like, playing Phoenix is like jazz. And, like, if you don't understand, like, sort of what your main goals are, then you can't succeed with Phoenix. But if you understand what your goal is in every matchup, you can kind of get there a lot of different ways, much like jazz, right? Like, I can form a different song, which is, like, just the way my brain works of, like, making these comparisons. And then to me, it all makes sense. And I hope that it makes sense to others, you know? So, yeah. It's weird.
I just actually want to touch upon the coaching because I've gotten coaching from the Mason before, and it's helped my gameplay so much. And one thing I think we should talk about is when you do coaching, the first session we had, we talked about strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like some people have this preconceived notion of like, I'm going to get Magic coaching, this person's going to sit down with me, I'm going to play my deck, and they're going to say, okay, play a Plains and now play, what are you going to play? Esper? Cool. That's not, they're going to puppeteer you. That's not how it works. And yeah, can you talk about your coaching methods and how, you know, those processes you flow into your coaching?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the reason why a lot of people think that is people did that originally and they called it coaching, which, like, people learned that way. And really what I tried to do when I made it my full-time job is try to make it more than that, right? Kind of like I'm using this like as an actual way to teach you. So yeah, like one of the first things I go over is I kind of ask you like, how do you feel you are at like attacking and blocking, at like big picture planning through a turn, sideboarding. We're kind of talk through some stuff a little bit. And then we start really kind of talking about things that maybe you're struggling with. And if you don't have something you particularly want to work on, we kind of dive in.
Mulligans.
Mulliganing's tough.
That's probably
That's
like,
my
I
number
think it's
one.
the number one. It's the same thing I say with anything. I just feel like it's a thing you have to unlearn, especially if you go into Magic playing as a commander player. Like, you have to really unlearn mulligans and
yeah.
learn the right way to do it and not be scared to take that jump and go to like a 5 or a 4. I don't know about for you, but at least for me when I'm playing, because we get the free mulligan in CDH, your mulligans are probably a lot harder, a lot more stressful.
I will say the one time you sat next to me at that Pioneer thing and you were like, after the game, you're like, I saw you mulligan there. Good. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Pays off. See? Look at that.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because it's like what I always compare to when people get anxious is I tell them it's like if I told you could cast a spell right now that was shuffle your like windfall, draw 7, put 1 back, you'd be like, oh, I'd for sure cast it. This hand's not that good. And it's like, well, here it is.
Yeah.
Go do it. So, like, I try to focus on those big picture things and understanding the game because like, I have definitely done sessions and some people want, I try to tell them, like, I don't think this is the best use, but, like, if you want this, I can, or we work on a specific deck or a specific thing. I try to set you up for long-term success. My goal is that you, like, learn these things, you learn these skills, and then you don't need coaching anymore. And the idea is you'll tell your friends and hopefully, you know, they'll want to get coaching and that's how the process works. And, you know, everyone has different, like, parts of their journey and whatnot, and like there's always something to work on and improve, and so you know there's a lot of things to work through, but I just try to get you like a good foundation. And what I found happens a lot is I coach someone for a little bit, they go off for 3-4 months, come back, we work on something, they go work on it, and like this cycle continues. And I've seen some real improvements in people, and sometimes it's just little things. Like so often a lot of Magic is you just don't know some little thing, and as soon as you learn it you have these huge level up moments. One of my like favorite examples is like Samantha Murphy is someone who she like top 8'd the Legacy Weekend. She top 8'd the Pit. She is just like this incredibly skilled Legacy player. And she was really good before we did coaching, but like just taught her like a couple little things about combat and the way to think about stuff. Haven't really needed to like, you know, like she's a friend of mine and like I talked to her, but we haven't really had that dynamic since then.
Yeah.
And she just started killing it and
Yeah.
just like dominating
That
Legacy.
third party or like that outside perspective can really just like one, get you out of your head, and two, be like, oh, I'm missing something that's like right in front of me. And I think that's a really nice feature. How long have you been coaching?
So I started coaching full-time when I got done working on Modern Horizons, which would have been in February of 2023. So we're just over a year now, a year and a half,
Okay.
I guess.
That's
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
up. And that's like your, that's what's up. Sorry. This is real professional.
what's up.
That's what's up. Love it. So that's your full-time job, right?
Yeah, that's
And
fine. I
then-
guess it's actually a little longer. I was coaching a little bit before I worked on MH3.
Yeah.
So probably more like, I don't know, 2 years total.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I totally forgot I used to coach like 6 or 7 people, but that was just like a way to get a little extra money on the side.
Yeah, on top of
All I
it.
do now is coach Magic. I
Okay.
coach and I podcast and I commentate, and that's about it.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's like a full-time, just like everything for Magic career. I know this is like not everybody feels this way, but do you have like a long-term goal of what you want to do with Magic? Like as far as like professionally speaking, do you want to continue to coach people? Do you want to have like a bigger net that you're reaching? Do you want to, like, a casting is fantastic, but like what is your goal with those things?
Yeah, so I mean, my passion has always been kind of game design, right? Like we talked about my story, right? Like it begins with why'd you start grinding in a lot of ways. It's like, well, I needed to prove myself so I could do game design.
Yeah.
And so I've worked on both Modern Horizons 3 and Assassin's Creed when it comes to Wizards. And so with that work, like that kind of is like opening some amount of doors, right? But that's kind of my long-term goal is I would like to be a game designer. That's sort of what I want to do. And I love Magic, and Magic got me like a ton of opportunities and a bunch of stuff. So that's kind of like the ultimate goal, like long-term, you know, in like 20 years, I would like to be working on some like deck building board game or whatever, you know, or digital game. In the more like 5-ish years, I would like to get to the level of like commentating Pro Tours. I commentated the last RC, and at the time you're seeing this, the most recent RC as well, which hasn't happened for me yet, but I'm going to be doing it in like a week. And so that's like, I'm hoping to continue doing that and get to the point where I commentate Pro Tours.
That's so cool.
Because commentary for me, like we talked about that like weird lull period, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm like kind of in Magic. I'm watching Cedric and Patrick every weekend on the background as soon as like I'm free, because I just found it so interesting. And it really, I think, helped me in a lot of ways sort of understand Magic a lot better. I kind of got a jump start, right? But yeah, I want to do that. And so I do commentary for the NRG series. I basically do all their events. I do the RCs, and I'm hoping to, expand out and do more things. With SUG taking over the RC, I'm hoping that, I've sent an email and we'll see what happens.
They're making some changes, and I'm hopeful that it'll be good, because I know that was a resource people had for a while that doesn't exist anymore, at least with SGG. So I'm hopeful that next year and the coming stuff will be good. But I think it's really cool to cast. I enjoy listening to people, and the I don't know. I guess, like, who would be your dream person to, like, co-cast with?
Obviously, my girlfriend Niall. That's my dream person.
We love Niall.
But
yeah.
if I
guest on my podcast.
if I couldn't get Niall, let's say someone I haven't cast with yet,
Yeah.
for the sake, because Niall and I worked on the RC together. I would probably say Cedric Phillips. I told Cedric recently he was the GOAT, but I didn't tell him the other part of it, which I should have. I know him well enough to. Now I do. Well, I should have told him, and I don't like that you're the best. I would like to be better than you. Yes, and I want to prove that I can be better than you at commentary. And so I guess Cedric, because he's kind of the GOAT when it comes to commentary.
I think you two would have a lot of good riffs too, and energy together. He's just really funny. I don't know where this came from, but for the past year and a half, every time he sees me, he says happy birthday to me, because somebody said it to me once and it wasn't my birthday, and he thinks it's the funniest thing ever. So for the past year and a half, every time I see him, that's all he says to me, and we don't have any other conversations. So yeah, he's just a silly guy.
He's a character. He is a character.
And I feel like the commentary is so cool because, as someone who's a newer player, when I started playing competitively, I watched the NRG circuit and SCG, and I watched your commentary. And being able to have someone who is, one, funny and entertaining on one side, like a Cedric, or, Corey Baumeister sometimes just got some of the funny little quips, but then also someone who's able to break down the game so a viewer can understand, just makes it that much more digestible. And it also brings people in. I'm like, that was cool. I understood what happened because someone told me. Otherwise, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's very important, and I think coverage is extremely important with Magic.
It's not my format of choice. I don't really play 60 card constructed formats and things like that. So when I follow things or watch anything with people playing, I enjoy watching that and listening to somebody explain it to me, because they do it so well and so clear, and
it gets
it's
you
just,
hyped.
Yeah,
it's like
sports.
That's what was it? Was it Pro Tour Lord of the Rings when I think it was Christian Calcano haywire mighted his own ensnaring bridge or something? What was it?
Yeah, I can't quite remember either. But I remember that kind of moment.
Yeah, he
there's some,
he used a haywire might on his own artifact to gain life back or something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember the commentary and Steve would have been he just haywire mighted his own thing. That's such an OP genius move. And I was like, that's such an OP genius. I have no idea. But I'm like, what? That's insane.
Yeah.
I think that's
and it's just so fun.
I think it's perfect for people like you, though, who enjoy playing the game but love sports, right? That is the perfect way to segue those people to get interested in to watch it, right?
Yeah.
So
the Tony Romo over here of Magic.
Yeah, I try really hard to build up the players. On the NRG series, we have a lot of regulars, right? Jessie Robkin, she was one of our now she's taking yeah, she's stepping back a bit from Magic.
Hi Jessie, I love you. Hope you're doing well. Please call me. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, Jesse, you have to fly out here next. But yeah, like, Jesse, she was playing all the events in 2022, and she was dominating. She just would win all of them. And one of the big things that I kind of told Norm when I was like applying to work for the job, he's the guy who owns NRG. When I was talking to Norm, was like, hey, we need to like build the people, because like people don't care about the cards. Like it's cool, whatever. Like if your pet card wins a tournament, fine. But like we have these players, why aren't we talking about them all the time?
It's important.
Yeah, and like let's get them in. That's one of the things I've loved is Norm's really like believed in that, and like the tagline, and he agreed with it for what it's worth too. Like it's not like I came with some idea and he's like, oh, I've never thought of that. He was like, oh, I want to do this. Let's work together and make it happen. And like the motto now is like invest in the memories, right? And like we have a player interview after every single round if possible, and we try to talk to people and build them up, and it's so amazing to get to see like people like Jesse, like Will Kruger, sort of play these events. We see Raja Suleiman, he comes down and just basically wins all our tournaments, and just like, it's like, oh, I'm in the championship. Okay, cool. And it's just awesome to have these storylines and get to like call back to those things too, where it's like, we're back in Indianapolis and Raja Suleiman won here last time. He's in the finals. Is he going to back it? And that to me is like sports.
It's like sports. The same thing when people wear matching like jerseys or shirts. Like every time I see Benton in the Dice City games, I'm like, go Dice City games, yeah, as if they're like an NFL team for Maryland. But I'm like, it's cool. It gives like the glory and the fun, and it makes it more personable.
I think that's like a thing people will say about like Commander 2 is like that's the social format. That's like the personality. So to put the personality into what you're doing, I think is really important to showcase that like these are real people. These are not robotic people that are just like playing the game and turning their cardboard sideways and leaving. I think that gives it more like a more human aspect, and it also makes like inspiring moments for people. I'm really bad with names. The girl who just played that goes to Steve's store, or the local
Nicole Triple.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, she used to go to my old LGS.
There were so many women who like don't, to my knowledge, really pay attention to that too much or say anything, who were just like rooting for her all weekend and like losing their mind because that was like something that was interesting to them. So I think there's just like there was a lot of moments where they showcased her and other people and talking about their personalities and their experiences and their stories, and I think that's really important for that too. But
no, yeah, I believe it or not, representation matters.
Oh wow, crazy concept!
I believe.
Ally.
I know, and that's why I'm here to be the white man on the podcast.
Thank you.
I felt like we needed it in Magic.
You saved us.
Someone had to say it.
We don't have enough of them.
Our savior.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about you coaching, and you did mention that your goal is about game design, and you mentioned a little bit about MH3, which at the time of this podcast coming out is out or will be coming out, and we already know what's going on because we're ambassadors, so we can talk a little bit about what you did for this set. And maybe we can't talk about Assassin's Creed yet, but you could just talk about something that isn't spoiler-ish. Yeah,
totally. I mean, so my work on MH3 was like really intensive. I like flew out to Wizards of the Coast. I like stayed in like a Hilton that was like a 20-second walk from the place, and I would work there every day. And I would play with like Brad Nelson and BBD, and then like some of the designers who were working on the set. And we played every day, and we had meetings, and we worked, and we designed. Most of the cards are already designed. There were a couple holes that needed to get filled, and we had some things where it's like, oh, this design isn't really working out. So like my most proud moment is, and this is awkward because I don't actually know the card's name because it's changed from when I was there because the lore already existed, but I believe it's Phage, the red-white Titan. That is like my card where like we needed a red-white card in the file, and they didn't really know about this card in the lore. And we were at lunch one day, and we're talking, and someone brings up how cool Croxa is as a card, and I'm just like, hey, did you know like Croxa and Uro are part of like an incomplete cycle that's like on Binding of the Titans? And I like pulled up on my phone and point to it. I'm like, that's supposed to be the Titan that didn't make the set, and it's supposed to be like this, and we could do it, and it could be Lightning Helix, and it would be this mana value, and like blah blah blah. And they just like all look at me, and they're like, is that for real? And like our set lead's like pulling up his phone. He's like, I'm texting creative right now to make sure we can use this character. I want it in the file. Like we'll, make the card when we get back. And that's kind of how, Phage got into the set file and just didn't change. And so that's like my biggest, like, that's now like my favorite card in Magic because I made it. But like, that was part of the process, was just doing things like that and like play testing, and a lot of my job was balance. They don't really need me for design on those things. They had people doing that stuff, but they did need our help a little bit in designing cards that were more like pointed in like, hey, solve a problem, or hey, like be a role player. And so, went there and worked on that. And then for Assassin's Creed, I did much less work. It was like do some file passes, give some critiques. How do you think Ezio would play in the game? Stuff like that.
Do you like Assassin's Creed?
I liked the first 3.
Okay, I played the Pirates. That's it.
Yeah, I think I played a little of the Pirates, and I think I got the Egyptian one for free when I bought my computer. So I remember playing a little bit of it, but it's something that doesn't hold a special place in my heart. Like Fallout would have been oh my God, I would have loved to work on Fallout, and I would love to work on Jujutsu Kaisen. That's not to say it's coming. I'm saying that show's so big, get me. Anyways,
You just gave us such good clickbait.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just you and Crims in the corner, please.
Go Joe. He's coming back. But anyways, so I think that that was kind of my role in that. It's much less. So I worked on it some, but when it comes to MH3, I really lived and breathed it for 2 months.
That's cool.
And it was really awesome just to get in there and work on it and see the love and the passion that all these people who make this game have for this, and how much care and how many things you don't think about go into making a card.
Yeah. It must also be hard to not talk about because you're so excited about this thing, but also now that things are coming out for it, it's probably so cool to be ooh, I remember working on this thing or playing this card, or elements of that must be so nice too.
Yeah, it's really nice. One of the weird things too is I kind of had to turn this faucet off, right? I couldn't talk about it now for about a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And when I actually left work on MH3, I flew to the Pro Tour because I had qualified for the Pro Tour before even knowing, I had agreed to work on the set. Did top 32 at the RC or whatever. Then I'm okay, so I get to play this, and I didn't even think to defer. It never occurred to me till I was going. I was I didn't really practice for my Pro Tour. I probably should have not played this Pro Tour. Anyways, but so I was at the Pro Tour with all my friends, and it's yeah, I don't know why I couldn't practice or be here, or that's crazy, I was just gone for 2 months.
It's when someone goes on Survivor.
I know, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I'm just gone for a bit, and some people knew that, I was doing work stuff. I told some people yeah, I've got a work opportunity and I just need to go out and do this thing, so I'm gonna be disconnected a little bit. But if you go back and look at social media, I'm not on it at all during
you were out on the oil rigs.
Yeah,
in the ocean.
We're gonna know for next time. Next time you go missing again, we're gonna be Mason's working on something.
Well, it's funny if you go and look at my tweets around January, you see me tweeting about Ragavan a lot because we were talking about Ragavan a lot internally, and I was well, I've got to tweet something because I tweet all the time, and I would tweet do you think Ragavan is stronger than this idea? And it's we're working on MH3 and we're talking about let's not do a Ragavan 2 essentially. Let's not power creep on Ragavan
2.
Blue Ragavan, little monkey.
0 mana.
Zero
Still
mana, blue.
It's just a force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Why didn't we do this? Wizards!
Yeah, Eldrazi Ragavan.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know what? Mm-hmm. Missed opportunity.
Unironically, a missed opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2 dash, 2 Ragavan. Too fast, too furious, but better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hire me, Wizards. It's cool.
Creative needs, yeah. No, but so that was a lot of it, and it was playing decks and really coming up with is this too strong? Is this sort of the play patterns that we want to be happening? And also a lot of it was testing the cards that were coming to Modern. Because Modern, has that set card pool. One of the things MH3 or the MH sets, do is they pull cards from Commander now, but also the before times of Modern, we add them to the format, and it's okay, is Sylvan Safekeeper actually that card's really strong? Can we do that? And testing that was a lot of it too, of just well, I think these things and it should be fine, or it's a little risky. Maybe we shouldn't do this card.
Do you have anything that you were I don't know, we can cut this out if it's something, but do you think we can cut this? We'll talk about it after. Yeah. Is there anything that you think's a f***ing mistake? We can cut this again.
I think it is probably best for me not to say that because there's 2 reasons. One, I don't really want to talk about what I think is super strong right now.
Yeah,
I think part of the fun when a new Magic set comes out to me is ooh, what's possible?
Yeah.
And if I let's, for the sake of the conversation, let's pretend that what's one of the White of the Reliquary is I think it's the strongest card in the set.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the answer. Everyone go
the
buy
answer.
it. Pre-order it. Pre-order it
now. That's the card. Yeah. Get it right now, TCG player. Use code ScribeBabies. But if I do that, it maybe removes the fun for someone.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of things you go to the LGS and someone's oh, that card isn't actually that good. And they're oh, I was really excited to play it, but you're probably right.
This is just
imagine buying a puzzle and it's already together. That's not fun.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's I don't want to really comment on that. And 2, I think that it doesn't my opinions and the company's opinions on things do not line up one to one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think there's a lot of stuff where people will so when it comes to this kind of stuff, I think there's a lot of things that people that might not have worked on the set, but like work for Wizards or, work on the RC or something else. We'll see a card and be like, that's really great or that's really bad. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. But I think it's like, I don't know. I would be really stressed out making this set in particular is my point of asking.
Yeah, I would go into hiding.
There's a lot of pressure. And for me, it's a lot of pressure too, because it's like my life goal in a lot of ways, right? Like this was the thing I was thinking about last week at the gym. But I was like, in some ways, I didn't fully do my life goal of like working at Wizards, right? And then we're doing game design. But no matter what happens, I worked on like a Magic set. I got a card in there. I affected the file. I know like the changes I made that I think were a net good for Magic. I'm hopeful I didn't, accidentally create new problems. And like I kind of did it in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
and I'm
did
like,
the thing.
Yeah, I'm like 30. I'm like, okay, well, like I could start doing new things.
Yeah.
Like I could pivot my life if I wanted to. I could just like ride the Magic stuff out and go into a new direction. And I don't think I want to do that. But it was just interesting to be like, oh yeah, this happens, and this is like a thing, and I definitely felt it going into it. Like when they sent me the set file that we originally had, I read it like 4 or 5 times a day, every day, and was thinking about it nonstop before I like flew out there and started building decks. And I built like like when I say I play with like every card in the set, I played with like basically every card in the set. I built hundreds of decks. I really wanted to make sure that like I was not wasting the opportunity, and also keep it a buck, like I was definitely the least accomplished person they've ever had do this, right? They really, majors really believed in me to like work on the set and know that I would have a good eye for this. So I kind of had something I wanted to prove where like, the people who've worked on the past are like Brad Nelson, like Hall of Famer, BBD world champion, Jerry Thompson, one of the greatest to ever do it, Sam Black, one of the best minds of Magic, Mason Clark, he shitposts on Twitter and like
number one loves Gojo. And he's 6'2".
That's right.
Get him in.
That's the guy I need. And it was important to me that like I don't waste this opportunity, right? And I don't like, give them ammunition or whatever. And so it like when I got in there and started playing with them, a lot of that went away. But like going into that, I was very like, got to make sure I'm like doing my best. I'm on time. I'm being precise. I would like practice my pitches so that like we would have this like 2-hour period every Tuesday and Thursday we called a whiteboard meeting, where it's like you had homework to go play these cards, talk about them a little bit, and I would like practice my pitches. So I'd be like 15 seconds on like, this is good, here is why, or this is a mistake, here is why. And then obviously we have a much more normal conversation, but I wanted to be like, hey, this is like why. Let me be as precise and as efficient as possible.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stress in that regard.
That's a big deal.
And then the last day, I just like, I took a man off a couple cards just to live a little, like a cheat day,
Yeah.
So I was like, flare denial, counter anything, whatever.
No. I do think it's like cool because you're kind of immortalized in a Magic card. Like you have this thing that you could hold on to forever, and like even if you stop playing Magic and you stop doing this thing, you have this thing that you got to do. That was kind of a cool.
Yeah, it's a cool experience that and that's something you can look back on and be like, I did this. Isn't that awesome? You kind of achieved part of your goal. Like I got to integrate myself into this set, and now it's printed and it's done. Can't go anywhere else.
People get to see it. People get to play with a card that you designed. We get to play with cards that you helped work on. I think that's really special. I was going to ask you about like some of your like a favorite memory in Magic, but I feel like that probably has to be up there. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite memories. I mean, there was that. There's a card. It was Energy Soul Sister was its name in the file, but I don't remember it now. It's like a 1/2.
Oh, there's like a Soul Sister.
Yeah, I don't know its actual name, but there's like a 1/2 with energy and gain of life, and that was like one of my favorite memories too, because that was a card that me and one of the WotC people worked on, and it was like my pitch was kind of like bottom up, which is basically, if you don't know the game design terms, it's like text box first, like top down's lore first, bottom up's text box first, and I was like bottom up. Fuck the elementals. And that was my pitch. And it didn't really go that way, but they liked the other part of my card that's like, yeah, Soul Sister with energy, that's cool. And we kind of iterated and worked it as a team. And I really I love the fact that there's that card, Phage, that's mine. That's cool. Yeah. But I really love that I got to actually work on the
collaborative.
Yeah, here's this. Oh, riffing off each other. That was very helpful for my learning as a game designer. So.
Man, I would love to just be a fly on the wall, just a behind the scenes clip of it. Like they need to shoot a little doc of that, because I feel like they mentioned I watched the stuff when they're like, here's Disney and we're making something, and I'm like, this is great. I would love.
Yeah, I want to go to the underground tunnels of Wizards of the Coast.
Wizards of the Coast.
Where you can walk through. They pump the smell in of trading card pack.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Get a
would have-
churro on your break.
They had Magic Lunch on Tuesdays where you get like 6 packs and like free lunch, and then like we did like draft night and stuff, and it was so cool.
Are you making shit up or is this real?
No, that was real.
What the hell?
Free lunch, and I would get 6 packs of the most recent set, which at the time was Dominaria remastered into All Be One. And like, because I was there for the first couple weeks of All Be One as well. And like, it's funny, I opened like a bunch of Elishnorns, and then at the Pro Tour, when my collector booster, I opened the like super duper rare stamp holographic Phyrexian one, and I was like, damn, Wizards bought me like all these Elishnorns. Like they kept giving me packs.
Yeah.
And they kept having Elishnorns. It's so sick. The card was like $50 at the time.
Yeah.
But you know, that was like a cool thing. And there's like a lot of stuff like that. So here's a content idea I have. And I'm curious to see what you two think about this.
Okay.
So I have this idea that in like 4 to 5 months, I'm going to do like the behind the scenes, like, okay, y'all have played with the cards now. This is kind of what we were thinking. This is the design story. Here's sort of like what happened for like 10 of the most popular cards out of MH3. Yeah. Not do everything, but do like the, like, you know, like, turns out that card didn't change ever.
I
or like,
watched the shit out of that. Hell
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
I'm into that. I love a story.
Mm-hmm.
I love also like this was supposed to be this, but now it's this instead.
Yeah.
Because it got into the hands of some madman, and now they made this.
Yeah, where it's like, I was right, Brad was wrong. You know,
Oh,
like,
I love
called
that.
it.
Yeah.
1,000%. We'll
Yeah,
watch the
yeah.
shit out of that.
I said it wouldn't be a problem when it got banned. My bad. Sorry. You know? Yeah, so.
I do think that we've hit a lot of really good topics today, but we do, again, we are a commander-focused channel. We try to do a little bit of something with Scribe 860. Didn't really work out. And I know that creating content for, you know, just 60 cards a little hard. Unless you're constantly,
it's hard, and it's also, I think it is a much different pattern than playing Commander, as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's also, aside from just the skills that go into it, there's a little bit of like intimidation and fear that goes into playing any 1v1 format too.
Yeah.
Not just Modern, Pioneer, like what have you. Even going to like a sealed night or pre-release. It's a little bit scarier because it doesn't have that like, I'm sitting here with 3 of my friends, and if my deck does the thing, cool. If it doesn't do the thing, whatever, we shuffle up, play again, and it doesn't have any stakes. Not that there's a lot of stakes, and you know, like.
Oh no, I was depressed. We were like, we're gonna go do sealed, and we went for sealed for OTJ, and it was not. It was a draft, and I was like, I wanted my own cards. I didn't want to give anybody my cards. I wanted to play with my friends. And Steve's in the corner, like, like shuffling and just like not looking at me. I'm like, this is not the experience I wanted, but I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
regardless,
it is a lot of fun.
Whoa,
Wow,
twins.
it's like we're in love. So yeah, touching on.
Am I in the middle of something?
No.
No, Mason, can you please leave?
Okay, bye.
For casual players or Commander players who want to get into, whether it be, you know, going to a draft night, or maybe they want to get into Modern, maybe they're also like, you know what, I watched that Haywire Might clip, and now I want to be on the Pro Tour and play against Christian Calcano. How do you think, or like, what would you suggest to a newer player? What kind of, like, what would your thought process be on recommending a deck or recommending a format even?
Yeah, so no matter what, you're going to have this moment where you're going to need to learn a lot of things. And people are going to tell you a lot of different things like, oh, Standard's the best one because it has the least card pool, or Modern's really good because a lot of your Commander cards are going to port more over there. And no matter what, you're just going to have to learn a lot. There's just going to be a learning process. Like with Standard, there are less cards to learn, but they change more often, right? So you might spend 6 months learning your Esper deck or your Slogurk deck. Rotation comes, it's no longer there. So I think personally my answer is Modern, because Modern is the one where your EDH cards are going to come over the most. You know, one of the things that we kind of did with MH3 actually is we tried to get a lot of cool Commander cards into Modern. Like Kali of the Vast, where it was just like, you know.
Wow. It's like they were thinking of me. Aww.
Yeah, so that was one where we were like, this card is like Modern power. Like, it is okay in Modern, I should say. And
it's
like,
really good in Modern. It's the best
really
Modern
good.
deck.
It's
Being
really
named
good.
after that card forever on the internet, such a good move.
It was a great move, the
Yeah.
best move. No, but it was like, okay, well, let's do this so that if someone wants to play that deck, let's do it, and let's do our best to support this as well. Yeah. Like, you know, I don't want to, like, a big thing with me as a game designer is, like, I don't want to tell you to do something, it turns out to be a trap. Like, there should be something. Is it the best? Who knows? But, you know, it's something. So, Modern would be my advice, because it's the format where, like I said, your cards can come in, and there's the wildest deck selection. You know, if you're playing top tier Pro Tour Modern, the pool of playable decks is much, much smaller. But if you're playing like, your Sunday Modern tournament with your homies or whatever, and you go get some pizza afterwards, the pool of playable decks is very deep. And like we said at the start of the show, I really believe that if you're just playing well, you could play a deck that is much worse than, something like Grief Scam or whatever at the time of this recording, that is like the best deck or whatever, and like still do very well and beat those players too, because like it's not like you don't have anything you can do against them. They're just the decks that when all the top decks play each other, they do the best. But you can have stuff that attacks it. So that would be my first advice. Is I think Modern's great, but they're all good. Whichever one appeals to you the most is the one, and the thing that you're having the most fun with is the thing you should do. There's so much learning. There's so many differing things that you're going to have to like pick up that are different. Like we talked about the mulligan heuristics earlier in the show, right? Like that's going to be a pretty big thing. So just pick the format you like, play it, even if it's just like, oh yeah, I played Standard for 6 months, Slogurk left, I'm going to go play Pioneer where I can play Slogurk again. Sounds good. Just engage and like take your time and give yourself a lot of grace. And also understand most people are cool. Like most people are just going to be like, they're not going to like be buddy with you immediately, but they're probably fairly friendly and they will help you out. And like, if you just kind of, be like, hey, like I noticed you did this. I'm trying to learn like why was that? Not everyone, but a lot of people will help you. And they'll be like, oh, I did this because of this. And if you like open the door to a conversation, you have this secret cheat code when you go to a Magic tournament where they also care about Magic and you can talk to them about Magic. And a lot of people who play Modern and Pioneer also play EDH. Like I have some EDH decks. And so it's like, if you talk to me about that, one thing I typically do when someone says they're new to competitive is I'll be like, how'd you learn about Magic? Believe it or not, they say Commander most of the time. And I start asking them about their Commander deck. I'm like, what Commander deck do you love? Like, who's your favorite? Oh, that's so cool. My friend has that, and like try to get the conversation started. And you can do that a little bit as well. And, not everyone's going to be receptive. Some people are there just strictly to game, and that's totally fine. But I think you'll find most people just want to have a social connection. Magic is such a great way to make friends as an adult. Mm-hmm. It's like...
That's how how I got started in Magic, because I was trying to make friends as an adult. Yep.
Yeah, it's like not easy, Like, when we were younger, they put us in all these rooms together, and they're like, talk to each other, and now we're doing it again.
I say this all the time, Mason! Yeah. Oh my God!
Yeah. But there's no homework. It's even better.
Yeah, it's even better. Yeah, the homework is your sideboard guide, which I know you didn't work on.
I didn't.
Coaching.
My dog ate it. Sorry.
Yeah. Steve told me that I should go off vibes. No, but those would be my big things. Like, there's lots of little things. There's like, if you want to like really dive into it, there's like Reed Duke wrote this article series a long time ago called like, I think it's like Magic 101 or something like that. But if you type in Reed Duke beginner article, it's like 7-8 years old, but it still holds up fairly well. And there's a lot of things like that you can learn, and you can take it at your own pace. Like my girlfriend, she like for a while was like really wanting to grind competitive Magic, and then she took a step back for a couple weeks, and then she was like, you know what, actually, I want to get back into it again. And she's like really deep, and I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. Just be honest with yourself, right? If you're grinding a bunch, that's cool. But if you're not grinding and you go to the RCQ, don't be mean to yourself when you lose, right? Or like when you're first starting, you're not going to win. Like you're just probably not going to win your first RCQ you play or your first local event. And that's okay. Just like engage and have fun. That's the point. Like if you want it to be something bigger, cool, except it's going to take longer. But if you don't want it to be something bigger, don't put that pressure on yourself. There's no wrong way to engage. Mm-hmm. Like as long as you're being nice to people, I think like just do it how you want to do it. Easy. Game.
That was wonderful. What a great way to end this episode, Mason. And also, too, you can get coaching from Mason. Crazy concept if you want to, get more useful skills for playing these formats. But Mason, what is your ending words? Do you have anything people should check you out on? Do you have anything you want to plug?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, X, at Mason E. Clark. If you want to reach out for coaching, going there or emailing me, masoneclark@gmail.com. Put coaching in the description. That way I know you're coming. If you want to have a conversation, I get a lot of messages that are like, hey, I'm like maybe thinking about doing this, but I don't know. It's kind of a financial commitment. I am happy to sit there and answer all of your questions and talk to you about it. I really don't mind. You're not wasting my time. This is my job. The same way you would ask your waiter to get your refill of tea, it is okay to ask me another question. And so I have some people who are really hesitant when I first got on the call, like, oh, I didn't want to bother you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no worries. So do that. I have a podcast called Constructed Criticism. If you're thinking about like getting more into competitive Magic, our podcast specifically is designed for like, hey, I am at the LGS level, I kind of want to start playing RCQs. If I'm lucky to get to the RC, we are trying to help you. Like a
Good
lot of
beginner
us.
series, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Like, and we're targeting and we're trying to make it digestible for you. It's not for people like Nathan Stoyer. Like you listen to Jerry Thompson's podcast, he's going to give you high level stuff. We're still going to get some of that, but we're going to try to approach it to you the best way for you to learn. Much like the coaching, it's about understanding long term. So that podcast is one you can check out there. Constructive Criticism. I write for TCG Player. You can see me there every other week, and then twitch.tv/the Mason Clark. That is everything with a link. I stream some, and I turn those into YouTube videos, which is just Mason Clark, I think MTG on YouTube or something like that.
We'll put them in the description so you can
Link
go
below.
Support Mason and check out all their cool stuff. Sorry, when you said X, I was just thinking about, again, the Elon Musk and the Weeb account. We went full circle in this episode, and I'm very happy about it. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us.
Thanks for inviting me. It was a great time.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you next time on the Scry Babies podcast.
Should we make faces?
Oh yeah, just at the end, just